Ever wonder why Russian women strut through Moscow blizzards in mini skirts and sheer stockings while Canadians look like walking sleeping bags at the first sign of frost? Two countries that know serious winter, but they handle cold like they're living on different planets. Here's the thing nobody talks about. This isn't just about fashion choices, it's about fundamentally different relationships with suffering, beauty, and what it means to be human in harsh conditions. Let's break down this fascinating contradiction. Russians and Canadians both deal with brutal winters that would send most people into hibernation, but their clothing strategies are so opposite, it's almost comical. And honestly, watching them react to each other's approaches reveals some deep truths about cultural priorities. Picture this, it's negative 20 degrees Celsius in Moscow. Russian women emerge from the metro wearing stiletto boots, fitted coats that actually show their silhouette, and yes, those legendary pantyhose under short skirts. They navigate icy sidewalks like runway models, somehow making hypothermia look glamorous. Meanwhile, the same temperature in Toronto has Canadians bundled in puffy parkas that could double as emergency shelters, thick boots that prioritize traction over aesthetics, and layers upon layers until they can barely move their arms. Or consider their shopping priorities. Russian women invest in quality wool coats that are tailored to flatter, expensive boots that are both warm and elegant, and spend serious money on proper hosiery that won't run in the cold. Canadian women invest in technical outerwear rated for extreme conditions, waterproof everything, and thermal underwear that looks like it was designed by engineers, not fashion designers. Even their winter date nights look completely different. Russian couples dress up for dinner like they're attending the opera, even if they're just going to a neighborhood restaurant in a snowstorm. Canadian couples dress for survival first, romance second, which often means looking like astronauts on a coffee run. But here's where it gets really interesting. This isn't just vanity versus practicality, it's two completely different philosophies about human dignity in the face of adversity. Russian culture has this deep belief that external hardship shouldn't diminish internal grace. Suffering beautifully is almost a moral imperative. Think about Russian history. Centuries of invasions, political upheaval, economic disasters, and brutal winters. Through it all, there's been this cultural insistence on maintaining elegance, preserving beauty, and refusing to let circumstances dictate how you present yourself to the world. Looking good despite everything isn't superficial, it's resistance. Canadian culture took the opposite approach. They looked at their harsh environment and said, let's optimize for survival and comfort. It's not about giving up on appearance, it's about being smart enough to prioritize what actually matters when the temperature can literally end you. This creates some hilarious cultural exchanges. Russian women visiting Canada are genuinely confused by the shapeless winter wear. How do you feel feminine wrapped in a sleeping bag? Canadian women visiting Russia are equally baffled by the impractical fashion choices. How do you not die of exposure in that outfit? The really fascinating part is how this affects their relationship with winter itself. Russians treat winter like a worthy opponent that must be faced with dignity. Canadians treat winter like a technical problem that must be solved with proper equipment. Both approaches work, but they create completely different winter experiences. Russian winter fashion is actually quite sophisticated when you understand the technology behind it. Those thin stockings are often high-tech thermal materials. Those fitted coats use advanced insulation techniques. They're not sacrificing warmth for beauty, they're demanding both from their clothing industry. Canadian winter wear is equally sophisticated but in the opposite direction. They've perfected layering systems, moisture-wicking materials, and weatherproofing technologies that can handle anything nature throws at them. It's not about looking good, it's about maintaining core body temperature in extreme conditions. But here's what's uncomfortable to acknowledge. Both approaches have serious flaws. Russian winter fashion can literally be dangerous. Prioritizing appearance over protection leads to real health risks. Frostbite doesn't care how elegant your coat looks. Canadian winter fashion can be equally problematic. When functionality becomes everything, you lose connection to beauty, self-expression, and the psychological benefits of looking good. Seasonal depression is real, and looking like a marshmallow for 6 months probably doesn't help. The workplace dynamics reveal this perfectly. Russian offices maintain dress codes even in winter. Women are expected to look professional and polished regardless of weather conditions. This creates stress but also maintains standards of presentation that many cultures have abandoned. Canadian workplaces are much more forgiving about winter practicality. Nobody judges you for wearing snow boots to the office or arriving with hat hair. This reduces stress but also potentially reduces the psychological benefits of dressing well. Their approaches to winter sports show the same pattern. Russian figure skaters perform in costumes that prioritize artistry and beauty even in frigid arenas. Canadian hockey players are encased in protective gear that prioritizes safety and performance over aesthetics. Here's where the cultural collision gets really interesting. When these two approaches meet in international settings, neither side can understand the other's priorities. Russians see Canadian winter wear as giving up on civilization. Canadians see Russian winter fashion as dangerous vanity. But maybe they're both missing something important. Russian commitment to beauty maintains psychological well-being and cultural dignity during difficult times. Canadian commitment to practicality maintains physical well-being and reduces unnecessary suffering. Both have value. The dating culture reveals this tension perfectly. Russian dating maintains high standards for appearance regardless of season. This creates pressure but also preserves romance and effort in relationships. Canadian dating prioritizes comfort and practicality, which reduces barriers but potentially reduces the special nature of romantic occasions. Their winter tourism styles are equally telling. Russians travel to warm destinations to escape winter while maintaining their standards of dress and presentation. Canadians travel to cold destinations to embrace winter sports while wearing optimal technical gear. Here's my controversial take. Both cultures are responding to the same challenge but making opposite trade-offs. Russians trade physical comfort for psychological dignity. Canadians trade aesthetic expression for physical security. Neither approach is objectively superior, but both reveal important truths about human priorities. The really fascinating question is whether these approaches are actually compatible with each other. Could you combine Russian elegance with Canadian practicality? Some high-end outdoor brands are trying, creating winter wear that's both technically advanced and aesthetically pleasing, but it's expensive and rare. Maybe the real issue is that both cultures have convinced themselves their approach is obviously correct. Russians can't understand why anyone would choose to look shapeless when technologies exist to stay warm and beautiful. Canadians can't understand why anyone would risk health and comfort for appearance when winter is literally trying to end you. The climate change factor adds another layer to this. As winters become more unpredictable, do traditional approaches to winter clothing still make sense? Russian fashion assumes consistent cold. Canadian gear assumes extreme conditions. Both might need to adapt to new weather patterns. Their approaches to children's winter clothing reveal the deepest cultural values. Russian parents dress children to maintain proper appearance even in winter, teaching early that circumstances shouldn't compromise standards. Canadian parents prioritize child safety and comfort above all else, teaching that smart adaptation matters more than appearance. Here's what I find most interesting. Both approaches actually work within their cultural contexts. Russian women successfully navigate brutal winters while maintaining elegance because their entire society supports this approach. Canadian comfort-first strategies work because their society values practical adaptation over aesthetic standards. The mutual judgment comes from applying your own cultural logic to someone else's cultural context. Russians see Canadian winter wear through the lens of why would you give up on beauty? Canadians see Russian winter fashion through the lens of why would you risk your health? Maybe the real lesson is that there's no universal correct way to handle harsh conditions. Cultural solutions develop based on historical experiences, available resources, and collective values. What looks irrational from the outside might be perfectly logical within its own system. So here's what I want to know. Have you experienced this cultural clothing clash firsthand? Did Russian elegance impress you or worry you about safety? Did Canadian practicality seem smart or aesthetically disappointing? And here's the bigger question. Is there a way to combine the best of both approaches? Can we maintain dignity and beauty while also prioritizing safety and comfort? Or are these fundamentally opposing values in extreme weather? Share your winter fashion disasters or successes in the comments. I'm genuinely curious about how different cultures handle the balance between looking good and staying alive when the weather gets serious. If you enjoyed this cultural deep dive, smash that like button, subscribe for more mind-bending cultural insights, and drop your thoughts in the comments. Which culture should I decode next? See you in the next one.